All right, let's dive in. I'm so happy to be here. It's awesome to see the energy over here. Thank you for having us, Magicball and Grayscale Ventures. This is awesome. I'm Yash Sheth, co-founder CTO at Galileo. We started the company about 4.5 years ago now. And our initial mission was always to help developers productionize language models quickly in their applications. And the early motivation, we started about a year and a half before ChatGPT even came out. And the early motivation was from us, me and my co-founder at Google, working on language models. We were working on 100 billion parameter models back in 2020 as well, on trying to get these models to work for the Google Assistant. I personally am a founding engineer of the Google Assistant as well, and worked on language models and speech for a decade before. Why is this so important? I mean, I guess the two talks before me, Pankaj and Siddharth, rightly pointed out that evals are super critical, right? And how many of you builders here are actually doing evals today? How many of you are not? It's okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it's, we still meet a lot of developers building AI applications and agents who say that, who needs evals? And that's okay. A lot of the applications, especially consumer-facing ones, a lot of people just do a lot of manual checks, and that's actually even true even in the enterprise. Today my day was filled with meetings with SIs in Bangalore, and I see a lot of them throwing a lot of human capital at evals as well. And you saw Scale AI and Turing and some other companies on Pankaj's slide there as well, that who are doing human evals. And you all who are not, who think you're not doing evals, you are doing human eval, right? But to Pankaj's point earlier as well, evals actually can be your key differentiator and your moat. A lot of founders today ask me, why, what's the moat in what we're doing? All of us probably have a thought in the back of our minds is that our products can be wipe coded in a day, but the infrastructure and the rigor that you put into the product is what makes it stand out, right? And to that point, I think the element of trust and control for AI applications is absolutely critical. I think that's the most important thing for 2026. If AI agents actually can be applied to real-world applications, you can't have these agents deleting freaking databases on their own, right? Like, that's just not done. We have to learn from somewhere, and I think one important paradigm that I'll talk about is, even the self-driving car era, right? Like, it's taken a decade, but the self-driving cars are like agents, AI agents plus robotics running around on real-world streets. But are they running around everywhere? No, they're geofenced. They have a bunch of controls in there, control systems that act on top of the AI they have brakes. So we got to build the brakes in our AI agents to be able to deploy them. Who would trust their credit cards with a voice agent today? No one, because we don't have the controls built in. Anyway, I'll stop ranting and start actually sharing some insights as well. I don't know why this is. All right, we don't need this. All right, so another perspective I'll share is that I also sit on the core committee and working group for the A2A protocol, and I lead the observability and reliability working group across a lot of companies, including Glean and Anthropic in Silicon Valley. This is the multi-agentic world that we're seeing shape up today. There are going to be a lot of first-party agents that enterprises build, and that actually talk to third-party vendor agents, right? And when you guys are building your agents, If they're vendor agents, they'll have to talk to first-party agents within an enterprise. If you're building your own agents within a large enterprise and you want to hook it up to like a Salesforce agent or a Glean agent or a ServiceNow agent, you have to build the infrastructure and the fabric for them to talk to each other. And I think in the last 4 years of our existence, we've seen a lot of paradigms shape up, and teams that are actually doing evals at level 1, they start with wipe checks and human evals, but then they quickly get to adding the software development rigor. I mean, in a sense, AI is more like software than like the old machine learning days today. You got to have the CI/CD, you got to have the rigor in your agents, you got to have the observability. Just like in the cloud era, once people started getting the right observability in place, of course, companies like Datadog, New Relic, Dynatrace, they became quite important. But that also helped developers move fast. And today, more than 95% of the POCs in the enterprise aren't making into production. Guess why? Right? And here, when we think about levels of autonomy in an agent, just have a very simple mental model of the levels of reliability in your application. It should just be a one-to-one mapping. How autonomous is your agent maps to how reliable it is, right? And for that, I think the whole workflow of eval engineering is very important, right? No matter whatever tools you use, whatever solutions you use, one of the main things that we need as a community for AI agents to really succeed is an effective eval engineering process. Who studied eval engineering in college? None of us. We all have to learn now as this technology is shaping up. So in the next 10 minutes, we'll go quickly, but I'll walk you through key steps in the process that help us scale evals in production and add the necessary trust and control in your systems. Again, remember, we think of evals as metrics and logs and traces. Oh, I can show you metrics from my voice agent, or I can show you metrics from my Salesforce agent, but just computing some metrics and showing them on a dashboard is not enough. Remember this, today's evals are tomorrow's controls. Okay, simple. I think, and it's very, very important to understand that. If we can capture the expectation of your AI agent in a metric and prevent the bad outcomes, the known bad outcomes from happening in runtime, then you build that level of trust in your agents. Without that, just showing some numbers in your product, sure, it'll make people sleep at night, but the moment they're alerted, they won't know how to freaking fix things, right? How do you, if your voice agent shows you that it made the wrong call, or it actually started blurting something bad to a customer, the act is already done, right? So always think about it. The end game is not just coming up with an eval number. It's about preventing the known bad outcomes from happening. So first we'll start with, and we'll have, I'll try to save time for Q&A. I'm assuming since a lot of people raise your hands about evals, I'll skip the basics. But, everyone's starting with creating an LLM as a judge. Galileo has a bunch of them. Our research teams keep developing new metrics. But again, what I tell our users and what you all should keep in mind is don't use out-of-the-box metrics. This is, in fact, even though we have it in our product, we tell our users don't use them. They're just starting points for you to develop your own metrics. Again, today, the teams that are successful with AI agents in production spend more time on evals than on building their app itself. Okay? And what we're trying to give you here is a framework to get started. But it's up to you to actually adapt these metrics, right? And this is a framework for you to think about how to think about your, like how to come up with your own metrics. But beyond this, all of these metrics are actually on one span and one node itself in your workflow, if you know what I'm saying. So if it's just one LLM call, or one tool call, but with agents, this is the common architecture. Like this is a very simple one-shot agent. Detect an intent, select the right tool, get the data from that tool call, summarize it, and take an action. Send an email confirmation. As basic as it gets. But this makes eval a whole lot more complicated. Why? Because you're evaluating against a host of different workflows and steps, not just one prompt and the output. So keep in mind that this is where eval is evolving to, right? With the complexity in agents. I'll just share some thoughts here, but you see the benchmarks here on the left? These are benchmarks from open source datasets and also Galileo metrics. The reason why we have this here is that not to show Galileo is more, but to show that none of these are actually helpful. 75% here is not good. You need to have really good metrics that you can depend on, that you can prevent your releases on, and really good data sets. On the right is a whole data set with your eval metrics turned on for it. So no matter what tools you use, use eval metrics, judges, and data sets as the two basic components, and then start building the different metrics on top of that. Then comes adapting your metrics to your use case itself. There are you can actually author your custom judges. But what we've seen is that authoring a judge, having a high quality eval metric is actually as hard as building your product feature. Probably more, because you need the eval metric to be accurate in order to depend on it for your product, for your agent. And so at Galileo, we try to make it super easy for our users. And today we have about a third of the Fortune 100 using Galileo. And their subject matter experts are actually developing the metrics themselves. You don't need a PhD. You don't even need to be an engineer to build a judge. Just in the same way, you don't even need to be an engineer these days to code. So, but the process of tuning your eval metric is important. And we've seen that think of this as like auto tuning your prompt, like prompt optimization for your evals, right? But it's a lot more than that. But we've seen that through a bunch of different iterations, you'll get to a good metric, even if you do it the automated way or the manual way. Next comes actually scaling your evals. A lot of our customers who have agents running at scale are spending a lot of money on evals. If you're running a production service, you need to be able to measure its performance and outcomes in production. But the problem is evals, especially using LLM as a judge, doesn't scale. It's almost like if you have 5 metrics for your agent, and of course you're sending the tokens for your own LLMs, you're actually making you're making the cost 5x more because of the eval judges that are running on your agents. So soon, and this is what we've seen with enterprise teams. We have enterprises with thousands of developers in each customer using Galileo, and we see that the eval costs quickly scale up. We have one of our customers, they have 50 agents, not agents, AI applications plus agents in production today, with 1 QPS on an average across the agents. Anyone can guess how much the bill would be for eval for them? Let's say annual bill. 50 agents, eval cost. 100K? Too low. Too low. A million? Too low. No, 100 million is for 50 agents. Come on, you'll run. But um, uh, their eval costs are ballooning to $27 million a year. And that's where the scaling of your eval metrics come in. You know, a lot of the startups that are doing evals today, or even building tools that do evals, they don't think about scaling these evals. The only thing they offer is oh, you can sample your production traffic, and sampling production traffic by running 10% of eval on your production workloads gives you 90% blind spots. And good luck with that. So I think that's where SLM-based evals are important. Start thinking about this. You know, and everyone doesn't have to get there. Once your agent is, I would say, beyond, I would say, 30,000 traces per month, which is still low, pretty low, right? That's basically 1,000 requests per day. You should start thinking about scaling your evals. And you know, one of the things that we've developed, and this is unique that Galileo has developed in the world today, is being able to take any LLM as a judge and run it on an SLM, on our Luna SLMs at 80x cheaper costs and in under 300 milliseconds. What does that unlock? It unlocks runtime protection with your eval. And it unlocks extremely low-cost evals. So this customer of ours, instead of paying 27 million, they're paying 300K, right? And that's the big value that you get, you know, as you scale your products. These are some of the results from our SLM fine-tuning efforts. And again, you'll notice that at Galileo, we're focused on solving the hard technological challenges when it comes to trust and control. But you all should know that these exist out there to actually scale. Even you can take an SLM, and it's easy to do a LoRa fine-tuning now with tools on top of your judge. We publish all of this work because we really want the world to adopt agents at scale. And we're all optimistic that will happen very soon. But now it comes to the point of runtime controls. On the left, you have monitoring. And to my point earlier, we don't have the luxury of sleeping at night and then being alerted that, oops, you know, my agent just screwed up and I'm going to be okay with it. I was recently at a dinner with some of the, you know, what do you call it? The fast growing, what do you call? Supernova, right? So some of this, not specifically lovable, but some of the supernova agent platforms and their founders, and we had also CEOs of some of the largest companies in the world on that dinner. And they're like, oh, I just realized your agents are deleting my databases or wiping out my hard disk, or, you know, I don't trust this in my company. It's like, show me what controls you have. So the necessity for evals is actually now turning into necessity for controls. We work with 5 out of the 7 top banks in US. And one of the things that we are seeing across the board is the standardization of controls for agents. Like, we are helping, of course, inform the model risk. And who here is from, you know, is that a bank or a financial institution? Awesome. We do have some folks, and you know, you'll see that, you know, over time, as more AI applications are put in production, you'll see that the industry is standardizing around the need for assurances. You know, they call them assurances in financial services, because without those assurances that it's not going to screw up in production, they're not going to put agents out there. So what's actually necessary is a way to control your agents. And you'll see this from Galileo very soon. We're actually going to open source some of this work soon. So that's something that I'm super, super excited about. You know, at Galileo, we've been solving these scale problems, right? And that's one of the reasons that have not allowed us to open source all the work. I mean, we would we would give it away if we can, but we want to make sure that everyone can run the scalable parts efficiently. Otherwise, it falls flat. But this part is something that we can actually feel proud about open sourcing and being adopted as well. So stay tuned. You'll hear stuff around this in a month or so. But I'd like to wrap up by just inviting you all to sign up. We are doing a course on eval engineering. Like the second, I think the second session is next week. But there's going to be a series of workshops and courses that our team is running on the process of eval engineering. We've been doing this day in and day out for the last 4 years. And we would love to share the best practices with everyone. And lastly, I think there's an awesome book here. Literally, this book has gotten over 100,000 downloads and is used in the enterprise today as one of the references on building agents. So, this is a pretty thick and comprehensive book. You can visit our booth to even look at it, but we couldn't bring enough copies to distribute the physical one. Please download this will be helpful for sure. Sounds good. Any questions? Do we have a few minutes for questions? Right.
Hello. Yeah. So my question is specifically around when do you choose to run LLM as judge, right? In what cases? So like you said, if you run it for all the cases, you're going to burn a lot of money. Yeah. But if you run specific cases, you end up with a lot of blind spots. Mm-hmm. So in what cases and how do you sort of decide that?
Yeah, good question. So I think it really depends on, you should be optimizing what LLM you use for the judge. Typically, you do need 100% coverage. So it's not like, you can't get away by being smart about it. There could be metrics, though, that you only need to run for certain invocations. So you can have triggers of certain metrics based on metadata from your product. That, hey, my product just made a credit card call. So, okay, now this metric becomes very important. Let me run it. So, we allow our users to do that in that kind of sampling and in our platform. But you don't think of sampling or from a creating blind spots perspective. Cost effectiveness is necessary. You can't obviously run out of money because of doing evals. But you should also look at, and everything is not LLM as a judge. So sometimes as developers we just throw everything at the LLM and say compute this for me, right? But a lot of things can be done via code and heuristics. So a simple example is I'll give you is people were building MCP tool parameter validation metrics on Galileo. Why do you need to do this? What your tool must be called with. Add some lines of code. And nowadays people want cursor to generate everything for you, and you're not even thinking about what code can be written. So that's how I would weigh this.
So you mentioned that you can run LLMs at 1/80th of the cost. So, I mean, it can't be a generic thing, right? You can't run a generic LLM with 1/80th. So where are you, what is the trade-off?
Yeah, good question. So we've done a lot of optimization on our Luna models. Our Luna models are basically eval, purpose-built eval models. We don't what we do there is basically we don't reinvent the wheel in using the language understanding capabilities of these models. But what we do is we take any open source open source open license model, and we have a lot of data and our own algorithms to make this into a eval model. What does that mean? This model can only generate one token, and we actually train it to only generate one token, and it's way more deterministic than a judge. So and a lot of the efficiencies that from ATX comes from that is that even if you think about generating 80 tokens versus one token, you get a lot of efficiencies. But we also build our own inference engine for our model. So you get a lot of efficiencies there. But literally, you can take any LLM as a judge and put it on Luna, and it will generate a metric. I mean, there's just a way to fine tune your prompt to make it generate that single token out of Luna. So, but what we do is there's also an element of fine tuning, and we want to actually we want to give it as a product as well. So you don't even need a data science degree or whatever to fine tune. It's built into our platform. You take 100 samples, just 100 samples of your data, and give it to the metric, and you can convert any metric from an LLM powered metric to a Luna powered metric. So there are a lot of different things that get to that 80x reduction in cost.